Greetings, adventurers, and welcome to the Loot Goblin Marketplace. Today's treasure comes from our very own Discord from a member named Taylor. It's called Journey of That Guy, and the TLDR is, I had a dungeon master using nonsensical rules for his homebrewed campaign to bully me, and after killing two of my characters by intentionally setting me, a new player, against monsters that were far stronger than my weak level 1s, he tells me I have no idea how to play and causes me enough anxiety to not pick up gaming. And this is after telling me he's setting encounters of a CR meant for the only 3rd level character in the party to take on, as if his character is the power balance of the party. However, he isn't that guy mentioned in the title. I am. This is my story and I hope you enjoy. And that TLDR right there really hooked me in and is why I wanted to share this story with you today, to find out what the journey of that guy really was. Characters of this story with names only change because I don't actually remember most names beyond an old school friends, so he will get a name change to keep it in line with the others. Me, played a paladin, then barbarian, and then almost a bard, to be explained later. The DM is the Dungeon Master. Rogue is that old high school friend. Played an Arcane Trickster Rogue, the only one in the party at level 3. Fighter, another person I've known, but this guy came back from my old church. Seriously, this game was just a blast from the past for me. Monk, a rando who was in the game with us, really cool guy, small victim of mistaken identity because, well, I'm an idiot. This story takes place a few years ago, shortly after I'd gotten a job and had discovered that there was a game store in walking distance from my house. So I decided to go in and check and asked if they did D&D nights still after I saw a sign promoting it. Dumb question, but I wasn't sure if they had any groups, so I decided to ease into it. They actually had a couple of game groups gathered, so I went in and found a group of guys to join in. What they didn't tell me was that I would have to pay $3 to join in. I apologized and said I would come back later when I actually had money. This being my first job, I hadn't had a paycheck yet. But then this glorious tall man with an even more glorious beard decides to spot me for the next couple of weeks. So I rolled up a paladin, who would inspire a long line of characters and whose very creation actually helped me with my own future writing. Silent, the Vengeance Paladin of Tritherion. Now, this character started as a paladin of Bahamut because I was not actually all too familiar with the gods of D&D, and so choosing a god wasn't exactly something I was used to. Actually, as you'll soon see, I wasn't familiar with a lot of things, particularly how to balance encounters. No fault of my own, as I'm not the DM here. I talked with the DM about this when he asked if I really wanted Bahamut, because I didn't seem too into the choice. In comes an old friend from high school who just happened to be in this game as well. I was surprised to see this, but he decided to help me. He cracked open one of his source books and we looked at the myriad of gods I could choose from until I came across a strange name, the eponymous Tritherion. He tells me that Tritherion is a minor god, but a god of freedom and personal liberty. His motto is chains are meant to be broken, as are those who forge them. To understand this next bit, understand that I fancy myself a writer. I even have a novel in the making. I experiment constantly to try and see what works with my own writing style, ethos, and prose. And for some reason, this simple idea just clicked into place like the long-lost piece of a puzzle. Well, I asked my DM if my character could go on a spiritual journey to discover Tritherion, rather than just retconning, because we already had a session with him joining the party. So it was that my character had no class features, but I was only level 1, so I wasn't too bothered by that. Then discovered that other players were level 2, with one guy being level 3, the rogue mentioned above. I asked the DM why the rest of us were behind in levels, and apparently there's a rule in the book where if you join in a new game, you start 2 levels behind everyone else. Now, I could be mistaken, but with the offhanded way this DM introduced this rule, I really did feel like he was just saying that. I didn't notice the odd looks the other players were giving the DM at that declaration, looks that I would come to understand as something that they really didn't like, but put up with as he was the DM and they wanted to play some D&D, but I sure as hell never heard of it. Luckily, I now know that isn't a rule, or at least not official. Well, in this session, I discovered another nifty little feature about the 2 levels behind rule, and it goes a little something like this. For every new character you bring in, you have to start 2 levels lower than the character who last died, to a base of level 1. I think you can guess where this is going. Well, to make a long story short, as our characters are traveling across the swamp to deliver lightning in a bottle, not the simile, but literal lightning in a jar, and I cannot for the life of me tell you what that was about, we ended up fighting a giant snake, a giant boa specifically I believe. Mind you, I was still level 1 and could only make an attack. All the other players ran to get into better position, and I was left alone to tank the damn thing. Not sure what to do, I tried my best to hold it off. Yeah, I was an idiot, cut me just a bit of slack, because I had no idea this thing was a CR or 2 above me. Hell, I didn't even know anything about CR at the time. For the very few times I had even looked at 5e beforehand, it was to more or less just goof off. It grapples me and begins crushing me, and for the life of me I cannot escape the damn thing. Nobody is helping me, and within 2 rounds I get killed. The DM describes a snake slowly chewing me. I was a bit pissy that my character that I had finally finished making was so unceremoniously killed, and did make a snide remark about snakes not chewing their food. Immature of me, but I did drop it. And so did the DM, who gave me a nasty look and just said that I get eaten. I asked the DM how powerful that thing was, and if it was something I could fight. He just sort of blithely mentioned that it wasn't. I suspect that he said this for another reason that I'll get into later. But I digress. I asked then, why were we put against this if it wasn't something we could handle? He corrected me and said that he designed the encounter for a 3rd level encounter. I tried to tell him I'm not level 3, but apparently there's another rule in 5th edition that says you have to plan an encounter around whoever is the highest level in your party. I tried to say that didn't make any sense, because if that were the case, then none of us will be able to level at this rate, only to realize I was an idiot for saying that because we had a level 3, 2 level 2s, and then me. I apologized and said I was a bit hurt that my character was killed like that, and I spoke out of line. The DM accepted my apology, and we moved on. He said I could create my character, and we could introduce him when the party arrived at the settlement in the swamp next session. So I rolled up Brago, a quick concept that was more or less half-baked, just a dumb barbarian who fancied himself a romantic and who carried around a book a bard gifted him to help him learn how to woo the ladies. He hailed from a tribe where his wife had been awful to him, and when he discovered that his children were not his, he left behind his tribe and callous family to seek companionship with friends and perhaps find love in the civilized world. Brago was also a bit of a showboat who liked to try and tell stories of his great deeds because he had a bit of an inferiority complex. So, when I'm asked to introduce myself, I showed a picture of my character. At this point, I was so proud of the art I commissioned that I loved to show it off, and still am to be honest. But it was more like I was a bit shy about describing what my character looked like by word of mouth. And here Taylor has provided us 2 pieces of artwork that really show off the aesthetic of Brago. And I'll say one thing for sure, already loving the concept. Me. You see this 7'6" barbarian lad trying to prove himself to this random shopkeeper who, as the DM said, just doesn't seem to actually care. DM, I want to make a check as I flex my muscles as I say, can you seriously look at this man meat and tell me that I lie? DM, sure, roll me an intimidation check. Me, I'm not trying to frighten him, I'm just trying to show off. DM, you're using your muscles to try and force his perspective. In my book, that is intimidation. Me. Oh, well, yeah, I see your point. I can make a note of that because Brago is not actually that kind of person, but I'll roll it as I mess that up. Roll something like a 17. Solid roll for having nothing in charisma and no training in charisma skills. DM, you all walk in and see the barbarian flexing before he suddenly starts screeching in the face of this terrified shopkeeper. Me, no I'm not. I'm talking at a normal volume, dude. Sure, I may be a bit boisterous, but I'm not screeching like a monkey at all. Fun fact, this is actually the start of me turning Brago into a Tarzan ripoff for future games. Compete with beating on my chest like bongos, heavily inspired by Tarzan, and even the likes of Kong. DM, yes, you do. When you try and intimidate people, you do it so by screaming at them. I wish I were exaggerating, but he actually said this. Me, I don't know what rule says that in the book, but you've seen fantasy movies and such, right? Where the edgy hero just gives a look and suddenly the bad guy is scared shitless? Hell, I'm not even doing that. I just want this guy to believe that I'm as strong as I say I am. Rogue, I mean that makes sense, he says before the DM can say anything. DM, after taking a short moment, he says, alright, you make him believe you. What else? Me, I guess I buy some stuff. In text, it's hard to convey when it's being written like that, but the awkwardness I felt at having held up yet another slot of time for our campaign, I sort of tuned out and just berated myself for being so stupid and tried to calm down. The DM isn't being rude, I'm just being paranoid. Well, next session, he kills Brago with an air elemental before I could even move on my turn, and after everyone ran off again. Cue me mentally facepalming while just staring blankly at the Dungeon Master, while he describes in slightly less gory detail about how my character is gruesomely crushed against the wall of a mountain pass we had been traveling through. So much for Brago's story, but I told myself it was okay. He was a half-baked idea. I had a lot of ideas for him, but none of them actually had the love or attention they need to be a thing. I also should go ahead and clarify something that I failed to clarify when I first posted this in the RPG Horror Stories subreddit. The other players, from what I understood, were trying to play safe, and considering how those fights went, I think it wasn't so much that they were running out on me, Yeah, they literally left me behind, but not because they were straight up abandoning me. I think they were trying to play safe so they didn't keep dying and getting their levels reset. And they were not bullies who were refusing to help me. In fact, those guys are some of the coolest people I've had the pleasure to play with, and if I hadn't moved, I would have loved to play with them again. So I went home that night and decided to create my character. I started researching how to play the game better because I just knew I was messing up. I didn't know how I was messing up, but I just knew I needed to act more like the other players. Stay out of melee, ranged only. So I rolled up Melina, the tiefling bard. The idea behind her is that she is of the thieving mindset, who goes around taking various artifacts or valuable items from criminals and selling them to a fence. She did this so she could earn money to send back home to her little brothers and sisters. I picked Tiefling and Bard for their stat bonus synergy because I read somewhere that was a good idea. I chose a crossbow and slightly altered a flaw from her background that she's the type of person to run when things get too dangerous. I was really proud of this character, not because her backstory, oh no. I was proud because I was sure this character would fit in better with the others. Everyone else ran from danger. I knew I needed to do this as well. Everyone else was something of a roguish type. I knew I needed to be this as well. But I still wanted to be, for the most part, good. 3 days later, after hearing nothing, the DM sends me a text saying, DM, sorry, I'm going to have to remove you from the game because nobody wants to play with you. Me, what? But my character is like everyone else now. See, I even went with a guide. I can be a better player, I promise. DM, you don't know how to play the game. And that was the last thing he said to me, and I just, took it. To understand why, I need to tell you a bit about my past, who I am as a person. It won't be too long, I swear, even though the history itself was long, painfully long. To put it simply, I was that guy. I was a terrible player, a terrible person, and a terrible friend for those who invited me to their games. I could use whatever excuses I want. I was depressed, I was lonely, I suffered from being severely antisocial. And while those things were, and in some regards, are still true, that was no excuse for me acting the way I did to others. I whined, I complained, I didn't pay attention to the story or the others, and if someone ever got anything cool, I wanted to match them. I alienated people and lost friends because of how I acted. And then I started to grow up, and with the help of one of those players who had taken on something of a big sister role for me, where I had no one else, I slowly but surely began to see the error of who I was. It has been a long, embarrassing, and painful journey to be a better person, and I dearly hope that I am now. So much so that when I had a DM actively targeting me, I didn't see it because I was so focused on telling myself that I was the bad guy. I wrote the story above from my own perspective because that was the only perspective I had. And my perspective was, you're an idiot, you mess up all the time with your actions, don't screw this up, oh great, you messed it up, nice work, moron. After I was kicked from that game, I didn't play D&D or any other tabletop for about a year. I tried to get into some, but they either went nowhere or things happened I never got to play. Usually work. I won't say I was depressed or anything, but I will say that I was embarrassed and ashamed of myself for alienating yet another group of friends. But then I met a guy called, I can't use real names, so we'll call him Hectros. After his first ever character he used in a game I played with him, Hectros was a lot like me in a lot of ways, a bit antisocial, no fault of his own, a huge nerd and dork who loved D&D. We joined a game where we were the only 2 players, and our characters got along together like peanut butter and chocolate. We just clicked. Sadly, while the game didn't last, our characters, Luke, that's me, and Hectros, were personal favorites for us. The 2 of us, and a friend of his, now mine as well, had our own little private campaign. After this game, and after gaining an immense boost of courage and confidence in myself, I went back to the store, and the first thing I hear, Monk. Oh hey OP. Me. Yes? I honestly didn't recognize him at the start, but I started to after a little bit. In fact, when I first thought I recognized him, I thought he was the DM. Monk. Hey man, good to see you. You don't have to worry about DM that was picking on you anymore. He's gone. I want to say that I just felt a surge of joy, that I was exonerated by what he just said, but instead I laughed like an idiot. See, he and DM looked a lot alike, and I thought this was the DM, and he had a cheeky way of apologizing, a sort of, that guy was? I'm sorry man, but don't worry about him anymore. I'm not him anymore. Projection is embarrassing. I accepted what I thought was his apology and thanked him for telling me that. 5 minutes later, after he clarifies that the DM ended up getting kicked from the store for toxic behavior, I apologized for laughing because my dumbass thought that he and the DM were the same. All because of the beard. Yeah, I'm kind of an idiot. But it does end well because he forgave me and even laughed when I explained why I mistook him for somebody else. He invited me to his game, and it was in his game that I created another loving character concept of mine. I might write up his short story sometime just for fun. I'm not a perfect player. I still mess up, I still get angry, and up in my feels about stupid nonsense. But I can confidently say that while my journey to becoming a better man is not over, it has reached a point where I can take solace in the fact that I have pulled through and left behind the seething, angry, spiteful child that I once was. I am generally better now, or at least I hope I am, and actually happy. And I can't help but look forward to D&D, and to whatever life itself now brings. P.S. To all the that guys out there, I just have this to say. It's a lesson learned after a difficult journey. There is nothing in life worth more to yourself and yourself alone than humility and self-reflection. I get that desire to bite back down the second you feel you have been slighted because I've been there, and I can say that it does nothing but hurt you. To quote Joshua Graham, I want to make my anger God's anger, but we're not in the right when we act like this. Those players will forget about you and move on, or worse, they'll remember you and talk about you as a dark footnote in their lives. Even now, I suffer the embarrassment of what I did because one of the groups I wronged used me as an example of how to not act in a TTRPG, or as a person in general. But most important of all, understand that your issues aren't the only ones on display. They aren't the only ones that matter. Everyone has issues, D&D is a team game, and putting oneself over the good of the group is a recipe for disaster. Besides, if you have a reason to believe that the players are after you, talk with them. Open floor discussion. You'll find that people are more caring than what the internet tries to portray them as. But don't worry about where you are now. Confidence is a good thing, but the main issue that guy suffers is pride. It's why we're so quick to attack those who we feel have slighted us. But it isn't true. Not always. Sure, you'll suffer the slings and arrows of life, but people are decent at heart, and so are you. Thanks for listening, everyone. So what I really like about what you did here in this story is it could have been a very short and sweet story about how a DM hazed you, and none of the players wanted to speak up because they feared if they pissed the guy off, they wouldn't have a DM, and by extension, they wouldn't have any D&D. And that's a story I'm probably going to cover like 100 times on this channel. But then obviously you went on to other campaigns, you noticed that you got kicked out of those groups as well, and that forced you to look a little bit deeper to see what the problem was. And it's really good to see that you did that, because obviously as you grew as a character and as a person, when you went back to the shop, you knew no matter what happened, even if that DM was there and was still kind of a dick, there was nothing more that you could do. And the fact that you went into the store and was immediately validated about it, I think that's a great ending. I would say overall, don't be too hard on yourself about the stuff you don't know. You're definitely in a place now where that confidence is earned. Thank you for sharing that story in the community Discord. If you ever want to share a story like this one, we have an RPG Stories thread that's linked below. Thank you for stopping by. We hope to see you in the next video. Farewell for now. Community shoutout time. Thank you Apocalypso, Deadly Plays, Alfonso, and Bloodsmith Gamer. Thank you for making this all possible with your support.